In a recent podcast interview, Stephen Amell, known for playing Oliver Queen throughout the Arrowverse, said the following statement: "When people think of the most recent iteration of DC, they don't think of the Snyder Cut, they think of the Arrowverse." Naturally, this has led to a lot of DC fans debating whether or not if he's right, and as someone who has grown up as a DC fan before they knew what the DC brand is, let me tell you, I have an opinion. I grew up watching animated shows like Teen Titans, Justice League Unlimited, and Static Shock. I was there for the inception of the Arrowverse. I was there for the end of the Arrowverse. I was there for the inception of the DCEU. I was there for the end of the DCEU. I was there for the inception of Matt Reeves' The Batman universe. I am here for the inception of the DC Studios Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters of the DCU. I have put my hours in of being a DC fan, and you know, as much as I hate to say it because I think this is a hot take on the internet, the Arrowverse was more impactful than the DCEU, which means Stephen Amell is right. And I know that sucks to hear, considering he's one of the only actors to go against the actual strike that went on for several weeks, if not several months. But let me tell you, this is the one very specific scenario that he's right in. I know, it's ridiculous. Who would think of the Arrowverse prior to thinking of the DCEU when DC is brought up in a topic of discussion? Let me tell you, pretty much everyone that isn't terminally online. The Arrowverse should not be defined by its last section. The Arrowverse should not be defined because it didn't always have poor visual effects. It didn't always have poor writing. It didn't always have too many characters for its own good. It didn't always have too many shows for its own good. The Arrowverse had a peak that eclipsed the DCEU, and I don't think it's very close. I don't think this is really that big of a debate. To the people who are terminally online, sure, maybe, but that's not a large portion of the people who are DC fans today. When you look at the numbers, especially recently in 2023, the number one thing that is dominating Netflix as of right now is the Arrowverse content. Yes, that's true. The Arrowverse in 2023, as of December 2023 to be specific, was dominating Netflix. And if you don't believe me, here's an image. Yes, I know I come with my sources when I talk about these things, but Screen Rant had an article about the numbers and it is ridiculous. The Flash at this point in time is still actually dominating on Netflix, and maybe it's because people love their long shows and people might actually think about, oh my god, you know, there's 699 episodes and 37 seasons of television, but it's true. The casual audience who is into DC because of the Arrowverse is still rewatching or still binging some of these shows. That's how much the Arrowverse has had an effect all these years later. And let's not forget, the Arrowverse recently shut down. The Arrowverse recently had to say its goodbye. And it wasn't too long ago when the Arrowverse did its infamous Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event that was successful, by the way. Yes, it was successful. Almost every single episode throughout that event averaged the same amount of numbers. Once again, here's the sources. A lot of people seem to overlook the exact accomplishment that the Arrowverse managed to achieve that the DCEU itself couldn't achieve. Yes, that's right. The Arrowverse achieved something that the DCEU couldn't. And you want to know what that thing is? It's the simple fact that it made comic book material approachable. Yes, I know, 699 episodes and 37 seasons of television might not seem approachable in this day and age because who has the time to binge every single Arrowverse show and every single crossover event? Absolutely no one in this day and age, let's be honest. But when it comes down to it, in the moment when Arrow, The Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow were the main shows of the Arrowverse, well, let's include Supergirl because I think that's fair. They were the trifecta of DC at the time. There was people who could tell you everything about what was going on in The Flash. There was people who were invested in a concept like the Lazarus Pit when it came to Arrow's peak. And although, yes, the Arrowverse had 699 episodes and 37 seasons of television. Try saying that multiple times throughout a video. Yes, I will continue to do so because it's hilarious. The Arrowverse managed to get us to care about the everyday life of a superhero. I know that might not seem like anything major, but let's take a character in the Marvel universe. Let's talk about our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. One of the main reasons people enjoy Peter Parker and connect with Peter Parker and love or adore the Spider-Man movies, whether it's the Spider-Man trilogy, whether it's the Amazing Spider-Man duology, or whether it's the MCU Spider-Man content that we still have today, I think a lot of people love Peter Parker or the concept of being Spider-Man because the whole point of Spider-Man is that everyone can be Spider-Man. Stan Lee himself said it in the Spider-Verse movie. Everyone loves Peter Parker and everyone loves being Spider-Man or the concept of being Spider-Man because it feels relatable. Yes, I know, it's a very simple thing that shouldn't be as important as it is, but the reason why I wanted to point that out is because the Arrowverse made these superheroes relatable. Yes, I understand, but why? Why would people relate to someone like Arrow? He's just Batman with a bow and arrow. Yeah, he is. And guess what? People love Batman. Like, I don't know what to tell you. People love Batman. Why would anyone love the Flash? He has all these different characters all around him. Guess what? The Flash peaked in the first 3 seasons. No one really cares about the supporting cast of characters, although I will always be upset that Kid Flash never got to actually flourish on the screen, but that's just me. I really think that a lot of people don't seem to understand that when it came to the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, and being able to actually emotionally invest yourself in not only just the main character, but the supporting characters who played a pivotal role in the growth of the main character of whatever Arrowverse show you were watching, it stuck the landing. You cared about these characters. You cared about the emotional, tough conversations that sometimes Barry had to have, whether it's with Cisco, whether it's with Iris, whether it's with Joe, or whether Cisco and Iris needed to have a conversation, or whether Cisco and Caitlin needed to have a conversation. You cared. Hell, I loved the simple interactions that Felicity and Barry Allen had together because they bounced off each other perfectly, just like Barry Allen and Supergirl ended up bouncing off each other perfectly. It was those types of dynamics that we never got on the DCEU that put the Arrowverse over the DCEU fairly rapidly. And I know it might not seem like that big of a deal. Like, yes, it's just simple character interactions. Yes, it's just simple supporting cast characters being simple supporting cast characters. But at the end of the day, when you do that across 699 episodes and 37 seasons of television, you're going to build not only a loyal fan base, but you're constantly going to be able to build a new fan base depending on where you continue to put these shows on streaming services in this day and age. That's just the truth. You cannot say the same thing about the DCEU. And it's not to say the Arrowverse was perfect. I don't want to be that guy, because the Arrowverse is not perfect. Let's just be honest. All the shows eventually had the same issues. When it came to the Arrowverse fair share of problems, and let's be honest, the Arrowverse had its fair share of problems, we'd be lying if we said otherwise, they all suffer from the same fate, and I call it the holy trifecta of the Arrowverse. Poor visual effects, poor writing, and of course, way too many shows having way too many characters, and therefore they all took away screen time from the characters we actually wanted to see, because let's be honest, half the characters who got their own episodes towards the very end of the Arrowverse didn't deserve their own episodes. That's the holy trifecta of the Arrowverse. And I know that that's a big problem, and I know every single one of those problems ended up actually taking those shows down tremendously in quality. But those being a problem are nothing compared to the DCEU, because let's walk down memory lane with the DCEU, okay? Because I want to make sure that I remind everybody about the bad things that we had to deal with in the DCEU before we talk about the good things, all right? When it comes to the DCEU, although it had 16 films and 1 television show, it never really won over the critics at all. In fact, I did the math. I found an image with every single Rotten Tomatoes score, and I divided it by 16. And you want to know what the average score was? 59.81. Can we be real? No one loved the DCEU, only Zack Snyder fans, and it's not no shade to the Zack Snyder fans who love the Snyderverse or still want the Snyderverse to come back. Enjoy what you enjoy, like what you like, it's absolutely no problem. However, let's be real, the DCEU never had any sort of momentum. Every single time it could have faced a setback, it faced a setback. Every single time a movie was failing, a Marvel movie was succeeding. So everyone was looking at Marvel and they were thinking, why would I ever care about the DCEU when Marvel is hitting its stride? Every single time you think something behind the scenes couldn't have happened, it happened. Y'all remember when everyone loved Wonder Woman? Yes, I know the third act is kind of hit or miss depending on the person, but you remember when the general opinion was, wow, Wonder Woman was amazing, DC might have finally found its stride, and then years later, they released Wonder Woman 1984 and it was the worst sequel possibly ever made for such a successful movie? Y'all remember Black Adam when The Rock kept coming out in commercials saying the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change, and then it never changed, and all that happened was him doing a bunch of weird collabs. Like, let's be for real, Black Adam had the craziest collabs of all time. Y'all remember when Zachary Levi went on Instagram Live because Shazam Fury of the Gods was failing at the box office, and then he tried to put the blame on The Rock for using Black Adam as a solo villain in a solo movie? Y'all remember when DC in the beginning of the year was like, hey, we're fixing all of our problems. We're making a new studio. We brought over James Gunn, who you love from Marvel, and we're finally gonna try to get it together. And then at the same time, they kind of basically said, hey, don't worry about the other 4 films that are coming out, such as Shazam 2, Black Adam, The Flash, and Blue Beetle. Oh, how can I forget? And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. All those movies failed at the box office. They flopped so hard, I did the math. Yes, I did the math. They lost WB at least $500 million. And I know that this is just me scratching the surface and me using recent examples of what we had to endure with the DCEU. Like, how can I forget Suicide Squad? Not the Suicide Squad by James Gunn. I'm talking about Suicide Squad. We had to endure that critical flop. The one that was so bad that the only thing that we could give it credit for is giving us Margot Robbie Harley Quinn and a very, very good soundtrack. Because I remain adamant that the one good thing about Suicide Squad is that the soundtrack is timeless. You don't think I still listen to Sucker for Pain? Because guess what? I still listen to Sucker for Pain. That song slaps. But I say all of this to say, this is just me scratching the surface of every single problem DCEU had to face. This is me just telling you the recent events that we had to deal with when it comes to the DCEU. There was no way, there was no contest if you asked me, hey, which was better, or hey, which was more impactful? Of course it was the Arrowverse. And I fully understand that, yeah, it would be unfair if I continued this video without giving the DCEU its flowers. You're completely correct if you thought that. So you know what? We're going to do exactly that. I'm going to list off every single accomplishment that I think the DCEU did or managed to achieve because, hey, it's only fair, right? All right, let's do this. Number 1. It gave us Margot Robbie Harley Quinn, and it gave us the Suicide Squad soundtrack, which still slaps to this day. Undisputed, that's a fact. Number 2, the Man of Steel flight scene. Yeah, that one when he takes flight and it's absolutely gorgeous is still one of the best visual effects of our time. In fact, it's probably the best visual effects in superhero entertainment history. The visual effects, the CGI, the soundtrack, Henry Cavill flying, all of it is perfect. And I don't think we give it enough flowers because it's that good. You're probably thinking, what other thing could I possibly have written down to give the DCEU credit for? And it's simple. It's one of the highest grossing film franchises today. It made over $7 billion at the box office, believe it or not. And part of that is because, you know, Man of Steel was iconic at the time. We also got Batman v Superman. Wonder Woman was big. Aquaman itself made $1 billion, believe it or not. And, you know, we have to acknowledge these things. However, that's all I got. And I'm a DC fan. I love DC through and through. I wore this DC shirt on purpose for this video. And that's the most credit I can give the DCEU. And it's ridiculous because I want to give it more credit. Yes, I know it might not be fair to pinpoint the fact that, you know, the last year of the DCEU lost almost $500 million. And, you know, The Rock doing what he did with Black Adam, the whole mess of Suicide Squad, and all these other flaws. But the truth is, The biggest flaw of the DCEU is that they started to do these crossover things where, you know, Wonder Woman appeared in a bunch of different films, or they tried to bring Ben Affleck's Batman into The Flash as a cameo appearance to, you know, show that they interact with each other, and all of that was far too late. Yes, I'm looking at you, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. I cannot believe that they decided to blast the Wonder Woman theme so many times and have her stand still like this as the theme was playing. It made no one feel anything. Can we be honest? If they did that very early on, and I don't count Batman v Superman because Batman v Superman's theatrical cut was a disaster, had terrible reviews, most people hated it. Let's be for real. The Arrowverse did that so early on in the game that it gave the Arrowverse a fantastic long-term growth strategy, and it allowed people to familiarize themselves with character dynamics. It allowed them to familiarize people with different potential chances in terms of, oh, what if this character shows up for this episode? And more importantly, it made people care enough to watch different shows. No one truly cared about watching every single DCEU film, and that's just the bottom line. The DCEU was not more impactful than the Arrowverse, and I truly think Stephen Amell was right when he said it.